Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hello, my name is Lauren. I am a 20-something from the greater Seattle area, and if you are an oldie but goldie, hello, welcome back in. Today we are redoing a series I did, probably 4 years ago now. I started this back in college and I had a thing called Coffee Convos where I would sit, I would have some coffee, and I would just talk about random things in my life. I think back in the day I talked about like relationships and just life in general, and now we're gonna bring it back. I am 24 now. I have a whole host of knowledge that I did not have at 20 years old. I have since studied abroad, graduated college, started my own business. I feel like I'm fairly qualified now to talk on things that maybe a 20-year-old was not. So let's dive on in, grab a coffee. This is almost like a little podcast series, so we'll just sit back, relax, listen, discuss this dialogue further down below in the comment section. I love engaging with you all, and just relax. It's going to be a monthly thing, I think. I really enjoy just talking about different things, and this week, to kick things off, I wanted to talk about friendships. Why? That was what was requested, and I'm not mad about that. I think friendships are incredibly important, and I've kind of broken it down into 3 parts. We're first going to talk about friendships in general, kind of like my background with friendships, what I've experienced in life, and then my view on what kind of friends you should be making, and then overall friends as an adult and in the postgraduate world, because that is a moment, okay? COVID, friendship making, it's a journey. So let us begin. Growing up, I was never necessarily like the popular kid. Sometimes people on Instagram thought I was. I most certainly was not. I had a couple core friends and I would float sometimes between groups, but I was never very popular. I wasn't getting invited to a ton of slumber parties or anything. Lunch could be a little difficult figuring out who to sit with, what to do, because I never really felt like I belonged in anywhere, because I just kind of stuck to the people I knew I could trust and enjoyed hanging out with. So initially, like one of my oldest, nearest and dearest friends who I'm still friends with to this day, her and I have moms that were friends since elementary school. So we were kind of grandfathered into the system. Luckily, her and I have still maintained a good friendship over the years. We still talk fairly often, and we hang out every couple months or so and just see how's life been, all that fun stuff. So I think it's important to have like those older lifelong friends. We've kind of taken different paths, but we're living in the same city now, so it's a little bit easier to visit each other, do different things, all that good stuff. And luckily for her and I, we've never really had any big fights. I think 1 or 2 over the last 20-something years, but nothing that I'm like, oh wow, this really ended our friendship. So luckily, there are very few people like that, and they're the friends that you can like go back to and it's like no time has passed at all. We love her, we notice her, we see her, we appreciate her. And then over the years, I had some friends in elementary school, and then halfway through elementary school, I moved to another school district, made a few friends there. A couple of them I still talk to this day. Again, fairly infrequently, to be honest with you. We'll talk here and there, but it's not, you know, an everyday thing. And I think when I was younger, I thought, oh, your best friend, the 2 of us have to talk every single day. That's how friendship should be. And I think I did a little bit of a disservice to myself, and I didn't really allow a variety of people into my life, but we'll kind of let that come in later. So I had a couple friends like that. Some of them are some guy friends that I still talk to every so often. I've been meaning to hang out with one of them, and just people that have stayed constant. Now that I'm back in my hometown, a lot of us have kind of ended up back where we started, so it's a little bit easier now to see different people and hang out with them, so that's been pretty nice. And then middle school was a bit of a pivotal time for Lauren. I did not have a ton of friends at that time. My best friend, that her and I were thick as thieves, she moved away partway through middle school, so I really was just out here on my own, living life. It was a bit of a difficult period. I kind of had to just be more self-reliant, you know, and then I kind of made some other friends, but that kind of started my series of like 2-year friendships, and that's when things kind of went kaput. So I'd have like a best friend, the 2 of us would hang out all the time, talk all the time, go on X, Y, and Z adventures, and then 2 years in, we'd just stop being friends and some kind of drama would happen. And for a while there, I began to wonder, oh my gosh, can I keep and maintain friendships? This happened throughout middle school, into high school even with some people, and it was just like a really big meteoric rise and just boom, everything would crash. And building relationships and maintaining relationships is very difficult. I don't think we talk about that enough, because a lot of us think, oh, you know, you have friends, it's easy, blah, blah, blah. I'm kind of an ambivert, so like I do like to go out with friends, go out and meet people, be sociable, but like I also really value my alone time. Working for myself has been a dream, a godsend. I don't have to deal with coworkers or anything. I'm just off on my own, living my best life. But then you do get a little lonely, so it's kind of, you know, a little cycle that we got going on. But that was like my most vicious cycle for a while. But luckily the friend that had moved away in middle school came back in high school. So we were fairly constant throughout the 4 years. We went on so many adventures. If you really want to look in the depths of my YouTube channel, she's there. We aren't friends anymore, but you know, it was good while it lasted. And then I made some other like close friends, and I also think for a while I struggled with like, oh, everyone needs like a best friend and like super close, but friendships can be kind of like those 3 golden circles. You're gonna have your best friend, the person you're super close to, like you guys are thick as thieves, and then you're gonna have close friends, and those are people that you don't hang out with quite as often, but still an important person in your life, and then like acquaintances and just like friends that you'll talk to, you'll hang out with every once in a while. Maybe you see them more in like group settings, but you don't like talk all the time and you don't have those more in-depth conversations. So kind of keeping that in mind, had that, and then I went off to college. And college is where things took a turn. And for a while, mind you, I really just would hang out with the best friends. Never really had a friend group, never really felt like I belonged in one, wasn't really interested in that lifestyle. Kind of got a flavor of it partway through high school and towards the end, but I wouldn't say that we were all like super duper close. Like we'd hang out every so often, but it wasn't like a tight core group of friends type of situation. And when I had a best friend, we'd sometimes have like a little triad, but for the most part it was just like me and a best friend, because you know when it's a group of 3 girls, it's always something's gonna go wrong. So bear that in mind for later in the story. Get off to college, get some friends. Took me a while to make friends though in college, because I went through a severe depression first semester, and that just is not conducive to bonding with other people when you're crying a lot. So that was a bit of a lonely, isolating time. Luckily, I did have some friends from high school that I could talk to, and we messaged back and forth, but in my like actual area, I didn't feel like I had many people. I like tried to make some friends, but it was kind of grasping at straws, and I didn't really have the friendships that I personally wanted and felt like could, you know, keep me going in life. So took me about a semester or so, and then I finally started getting out of my shell. I started going out more instead of self-isolating, hanging out at home all the time watching TV. I said, no, we're gonna go out, we're gonna meet people, gotta force yourself to do things. So if you're in college, make sure you go out, talk to people, socialize. I think as the world's starting to open up again a bit more, it's a good time to do things like that and just push yourself out of your comfort zone, because you're not gonna meet people just by doing nothing. So worked on that for myself for a while, and then sophomore year I found myself in a friend group, and I said, oh my god, she's popping off. I had like my core group of guy friends, a girlfriend that was like in the group, and so all of us would just kind of hang out all the time, and it was really nice. I also had some like closer friends that I'd hang out with when school was over or like not in session back here on the west side, because I went to school in Eastern Washington, lived in Western Washington. So, you know, I kind of had like a good social life going. I was able to balance like my studies a bit and had people that I could work with, go to, talk to, and again kind of had those different pockets that I used to have back in high school. So we were thriving for a while until we weren't at the end of sophomore year. Everything came to a crashing halt, which is sort of a theme. I also lost the best friend in high school. Speaking of crashing everything down, our friendship had ended. My boyfriend at the time had ended, like all within a couple weeks of each other. It was a lot of energy, and I was not doing too hot. So my support system barely existed. Tried to build it back up. The new support system crashed. It was a mess. And on top of that, all of us were supposed to be studying abroad in Europe the next couple months. So you could say that I was struggling at the time. Tried to make some friends, tried to be sociable again a little bit, but it was very difficult for me, and I kind of ended up going with more of like the partier girls, which in hindsight maybe was not my best move. You will see why later. So I kind of got into like a little girl group. It was the 3 of us. We'd hang out all the time, and we like studied abroad together. I didn't live with them, but I still had to see a lot of the people that I was friends with before that kind of dropped me. And I was like, what am I supposed to do? Fortunately, I had a couple heart-to-hearts with people and we were able to make it work, and I still am friends with one of those people to this day, which is really nice, but again, not at all as close as we once were. Like sophomore year, we're like best friends, talked constantly, like thick as thieves. Junior year, still fairly close, but like we weren't hanging around as much. And then senior year, we're just like friends that we, you know, talk every so often, but again, friendships were not like they were back in the day. So that was also a bit difficult because it's like, I don't know how friendships are supposed to work. Things keep ebbing and flowing. Who do I trust? Who do I hang out with? I had some close friends that luckily I was able to live with, so our relationships were able to grow and bond a bit more, but of course drama happens, and we kind of found ourselves in the Jersey chaser lifestyle for a bit. Again, partying all the time. It was an adventure. Like, we got stories, but was it really conducive to building us into better people and supporting each other and stuff? I don't think so. So that kind of went on even through senior year. One of the girls graduated, she'd still come visit us, and it was just like a time. Tried to make some friends in some other groups, and I tried to get myself more involved on campus with volunteering. And then by senior year, I had started my own stuff with social media and tried to network more with other creators and get to know people in my field. Or at the time, it was more just like a hobby. I wasn't making any money off of it, but I was trying to figure out, how does this influencer marketing thing work? How can I grow that, evolve it? So that was an interesting time, and I did feel like my friendships were pretty solid at that point. And then going into second semester senior year, a pandemic happened. I said, let's go. Pop off, queen. Yay. It was not indeed a fun time, because then I had all of these friends, I was going out, I was having such a good senior year, and then it was all ripped away from me. We went to Vegas the beginning of spring break. Day after we get back, the world shut down. Talk about traumatic. And then you can't even go see your friends. I went home, stayed with my parents, moved back in months before I wanted to. I was hoping to move out after college, go live on my own, live my best life. No, that did not happen. And so then you get into this weird point of like, oh my gosh, who do I hang out with? You can't even really see people in person. I just felt so isolated. Fortunately, I did have social media and online friends that I was able to talk to, but for me, it's not the same like an internet friend versus an in real life friend. I just really crave like that actual quality time and getting to spend just like in-person time together. Like, I am grateful for all of my internet friendships and talking to people, and I feel like that fills up my cup to an extent, but I'm the type of person that just prefers to like actually hang out with someone, be able to talk to them in person, do different activities together. So it was a bit of an adjustment for sure. But at the time, I started getting closer to my mentor, and her and I kind of became friends when I was her intern of all things, and we just kind of hung out and talked after I finished my time with her, and we grew closer. That would be our girl Catherine. You see her all the time. We love her. We know her. Great. So our friendship kind of developed, and then some other friendships fell off the wayside. I haven't seen most of the girls that I was friends with in college since graduating, because we moved back home, and then that was it. We couldn't go see each other. It was hard to travel. No one really wanted to drive however far to see each other because parents had us on lockdown. Just the world was on lockdown. It wasn't really safe. So it was a really weird time to navigate friendships and relationships. And I felt like, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to have any kind of social life outside of school? And I had gotten a job about 3 or 4 months after graduating at a Nordstrom. I just did sales and stuff, and it was difficult there too because all my coworkers were a lot older than me. Most of them had children. I was working in the lingerie section. I was very much the youngest person there, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't even really make work friends or anything, and it was just a really difficult time for me. And I tried to rely on a few friendships, and luckily my best friend is like an extrovert, so she's slowly been able to help me introduce to new people, which we'll get more into that later. But at the time, it was just a little weird, and I was like, I'm gonna just kind of stay where I'm safe. And you could do that. You can choose safe friendships, or you can start pushing yourself. And that is sort of what I started noticing in myself in the last year or two. So, making my friends. Now I would say I have a pretty decent social life. I've got like my best friend Catherine. Her and I hang out as often as we can. very close, talk every single day, very beautiful friendship. Then I've got my close friends who are some people from college and people from high school, elementary school, whatever it may be. And we talk fairly often, not every single day, but we don't need to for our relationships to work. And then just other random friends that I'll see here and there, people I'll reach out to on social media, and those I feel like I can just talk to about what I need to. So kind of keeping that in its little realm. And I would also like to point out, up until about college or so, a lot of my friends that I was very close to were very similar to myself, getting into phase 2 of our chat. You can choose to pick safe friendships as well, and not just people that are different from you. But I mean, of course you want to have commonalities with people you're friends with, right? I mean, my best friend when I was younger, another brunette girl, like we were just two peas in a pod, same kind of socioeconomic background, same familial background. There wasn't a lot of difference there, and it's comfortable. You know, you pick people that are similar to you, there's comfort there, and you can kind of just get stuck in, oh, people are like me, this is just sort of how the world works. And that was the lens that I carried up until my college years, because growing up where I didn't really know any different. That's the social circles my family ran in, they still do, and I was never really taught to like go make friends with kind of like the weird kid or someone that, you know, has a different background than you. I think there was like, I don't even know, we could be speculative about that, but you kind of just get comfortable with what you know, and I still know a lot of people who do that. So you can choose to be safe, pick friends that are close to you, same kind of background, same lifestyle, and it's great, but how are you supposed to grow as a person and in your friendship? It was only when I started talking to people that had a different background than me and a totally different life experience than me that I was like, oh, wait a minute, this can be different than I thought. So let's fast forward back into the college years. I befriend someone that's a full-time wheelchair user. At the time, I barely knew anything about like disability other than my grandmother who was disabled as a young girl, but like I didn't really think too much of it, didn't really do any research, and just had never had conversations with someone with a different life experience than me. Because of course, how are you going to learn anything if you don't actually talk to people, hear their experiences, have that dialogue going back and forth? And I'll never forget one of the first times we just like sat down, hung out, talked, and they were telling me how, oh, I can't live really anywhere else on campus because it's not accessible to me. And I was just like, oh, duh. But like, when are you going to think about that? What other friends do I have in my life that have that same experience? None of us. We're all able-bodied. Again, I kind of come from a world of a lot of privilege. I'll be the first to admit, I'm very well aware. Upper middle class, white, Christian, like we're living the life in America, yeah? And so to meet someone who literally has barriers every single day, you're like, OT. And I mean, I had a little exposure growing up. One of my friends came out as trans in high school and is a black person, but again, we weren't like as close as some of my other friends, so I didn't really have those meaningful conversations or know too much. But then once I started to actually speak to people and listen, I was like, oh, T. A couple years later, I had another friend come out as queer, actually a couple that did, some as bisexual, and now I have a very close friend of mine who's a trans woman, and she came out about 1.5 years ago. And at first I was like, oh, I had no idea, and I really didn't know much about the trans community or any of her experiences, and we just, again, had that dialogue and talked. And before I really started to open my mind, talk to people with different backgrounds than me, I just thought, oh, the world works in the way that I saw it. And I was a closed-minded person back in the day. And that is something I am very ashamed to admit. I mean, I was very involved in my church, had a lot of friends that were similar to me, and we just kind of lived in our own world. We weren't talking to anyone that was different from us. And that kind of was a hindrance to me, I think. I didn't really understand the lives of different people, how their worlds worked, and I just thought, oh, they're just weird, it's wrong, this is like a bad thing, and I just sort of othered people that had no right to be othered. Well, who was I to say that they are less than or anything different than me? We just have different paths. Literally it. We're all human at the end of the day. Why am I placing judgments on X, Y, and Z? Like, no. So then, again, start having those conversations, and really my eyes were just like opened, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a whole other world out there. And then my best friend is a queer Latinx woman. She's telling me all of her life experiences, her depth of knowledge, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Now, do I personally connect to a lot of the stuff? Not necessarily. It's not my life experience, but it has led to so much more empathy within me. I am able to listen to all kinds of people, all voices, and say, oh, maybe we are a little different in this way, but we still have other commonalities. And that's also something I think we forget, is that we have so much in common with so many different people that, yes, sometimes we may think, oh, they're very different from us, and we can other different people, and we'll close ourselves off to so many beautiful friendships. Why do we do that? Ridiculous. So, this is my plea and my ask, especially if you're someone in my similar background. Just branch out a little bit, make like a tree, talk to someone you normally wouldn't. And you gotta sometimes put yourself in uncomfortable situations, invite people over that you may not normally, have that conversation with someone that you just didn't think you maybe would, and put yourself in some somewhat uncomfortable situations. I also remember going to different drag shows back in the day and just being extremely uncomfortable and like, oh my gosh, I feel like a minority, I don't fit in. I also had gone to a wheelchair basketball game before, or I think it was a practice actually. And I was the minority, and it was just very kind of jarring for me, honestly. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is how they feel all the freaking time. And I just have like a tiny taste. So put yourself in those uncomfortable situations, and friendships can just blossom. You don't even know. I now have such a beautifully diverse group of friends. Of course, I could always make it even more diverse, have more people from different backgrounds, but once you kind of just find those commonalities and you say, oh, we do have our differences, I hear your differences, here's what I bring to the table, and then also focus on things you have in common, life just becomes so much richer. You have no idea. So that is my biggest urge to you all. And then, of course, as you're making friends, it's like, how do I make friends? I'm now in my mid-20s, life's changing, people are going off in all sorts of directions in my life, and it can be difficult to meet people that are similar-ish to me in some sort of way. So one thing that I've started doing personally is, one, I've luckily befriended an extrovert, so she's been introducing me to her friends. We talk, we make those connections, and now I've got a couple other friends that I can go to for different things. And I also started reaching out to other content creators, especially people in my area. So this is more for the creative types, but whatever field you're in, just reach out to coworkers, to different people. Say, hey, I'd love to go and get drinks one day. I'd love to go out for ice cream or something, and just extend the olive branch. Sometimes it's really scary to put yourself in that vulnerable position because you could get rejected. And it's like, well, they weren't in your life before, so do you really lose that much if they say no? No, but I think people are now starting to crave that attention, that human connection again, and just saying, hey, you seem really cool. I'd love to get to know you. How can we hang out? I think the machine was getting mad at me, but as I was saying, I started reaching out to people. People are craving that human connection now. We've been isolated for so long. It's been difficult to maintain relationships and friendships. So just extending the olive branch and say, hey, you look like a cool person. We have X, Y, and Z in common. I'd love to meet up in person one day. So I had the bright idea a couple months back to invite some local Seattle content creators, bloggers, influencers to go out for a brunch. And we invited some of our other friends, and before you knew it, this beautiful group of women came together. We had brunch, we talked about the industry, just about our lives, past experiences, and now I've got some influencer creator friends that I can text all the time, reach out to, and we just kind of have a mutual understanding of what's going on in our lives. They know, oh, this is something that I'm dealing with. What are you dealing with? One of my friends I got to meet and visit down in Portland. She lives a little further away, but her and I would sit and talk, have different conversations about life. She's also an expectant mom, so she told me what she was having before she told most people, and it's just really cool to have like those special bonds with people that you wouldn't have talked to or met otherwise. Because yes, they may be a little further away from you, like location wise, but traveling is so fun and changes the game for people. So when you actually travel and branch out of your comfort zone, and again, of what you know, you can meet so many beautiful people in this world and actually create and develop friendships that you otherwise would not have had. So yeah, I encourage you to also reach out to new people. I had traveled with the influencers. We go out to different events now. We have people that just understand what we're going through. Now that I'm self-employed, it can get a bit isolating just working by myself, working from home all the time. I just try to reach out and I say, hey, do you want to go meet up at a coffee shop or go out and just hang out, talk, work together? And it just sort of helps fill up that little portion of us that we just didn't really have going for us for a while. And again, even though we have our content creation, influencer marketing in common, all of us have extremely different backgrounds. A lot of them are Seattle transplants instead of natives like me. So I'm going to learn about their past experiences where they've lived before. A couple of us have lived abroad. So we would talk about our experiences in Europe and then how is that different from the US? We'll talk about different marketing things, different trends, and figure out how we can help each other grow and increase each other's influence, but also just have people that understand and get it. Because another thing I was struggling with, especially late last year, is my best friend at that time kind of had like two going on, but one of them really wasn't a good friend. And her and I's friendship had ended. I've talked about this before, and that was pretty difficult for me and a bit isolating because we lived together, we worked together, we were so close, and then I said, I can't do this anymore, end of the friendship. And I mean, I did kind of end up alone again, and I was in that searching place of, oh my gosh, who would I spend time with? What do? I don't have like a ton of friends in the city that I was living in, and it was a bit of a lifestyle adjustment. And so I again just went and started reaching out to people, and I said, hey, we do kind of the same sort of thing, let's meet up, let's hang out. And I think that really saved me from getting into an incredibly dark place. I mean, I still was a bit, but I also forced myself to travel home, visit friends I hadn't seen in a while. And I said, hey, I haven't seen you in a while, we haven't talked, like, how have you been, what's going on, can we see each other and meet up? And those friends have introduced me to so many other people now, and we'll have like group hangouts or different adventures together, and it again just continues to fill my cup and feel like, oh, I have those social connections and those friendships that I would not have had otherwise. And so I encourage you, if you're in the same boat as me, friendships are difficult, you don't really know what they mean to you at this point, reach out to people that are similar to you but a bit different than you, and you never know what kind of empathy you're gonna unearth from there. I mean, the connections I've been able to make now are just exponential than they were before. I've been able to hustle. I'm now feeling more confident and comfortable with networking, and it's helped me in my business, reach out to new people, talk to new brands, businesses, different clients and stuff. But would I have done that if I just continued sitting in my room and doing nothing? No. So all of that to say, thank you so much for listening and watching. If you have any more comments, questions, viewpoints, I am more than happy to hear them below. This is just my point of view, things that I've gleaned over the last several years of who I was before versus who I am now. And do I think I have it right and am I perfect? Absolutely not. None of us are. That's just the nature of the game. But if we continue to interact with people, listen to their stories, and encourage dialogue, I feel like that's really where the best and most beautiful friendships truly can stem from. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and come back for more of our coffee convos. I'll try to do these again once a month, and we'll just talk about different topics. Next month, I have a very exciting topic on hand for you, so stay tuned. Hope you're excited, and I'll see you next time. Toodles!